pen. C.N. Barneswell. The Financial Investigations Division FID is again rejecting a post circulating on social media claiming it has ruled to charge Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness with breaches of the Proceeds of Crime Act and other corruption-related offences. The post is purported to be from a Gleaner article, but in a media release on Tuesday, the FID says the information is false and misleading. It says no charges have been laid against the Prime Minister. The FID says it has made no such ruling, statement or announcement regarding Dr. Holness or any similar matter as alleged in the post. It says the fake image and claim first surfaced on Election Day, September 3 this year. The FID says at the time, it also dismissed the social media post. The division says the re-emergence of the fake post is cause for concern. It says the post has the potential to mislead the public, damage reputations, and undermine confidence in the country's law enforcement and justice systems. Chief Technical Director of the FID, Dennis Chung, is urging the public to not circulate the false post. The FID head is urging Jamaicans to think twice before sharing any information that appears to be an official statement, especially when it carries sensational or politically charged claims. He's also advising persons to refrain from spreading false information which may amount to defamation. The Veterinary Services Division in the Ministry of Agriculture says it has activated protocols to mitigate the possible entry of bird flu into Jamaica. This follows confirmation of the disease in the Cayman Islands in late November. The ministry says the outbreak involved both wild and domesticated birds on a single farm. It notes that to date there have been no reports of bird flu in Jamaica. The ministry says robust surveillance measures remain in place to monitor wild birds and domestic poultry, ensuring the safety of the island's borders. It says importation of live poultry and byproducts without permits from the division is strictly prohibited. The ministry says it convened a meeting on Tuesday with poultry industry stakeholders to discuss the situation and strengthen surveillance and response mechanisms. The primary risks for the introduction of bird flu at this time include the migration of wild birds, the illegal importation of live birds, and the illegal importation of poultry products. The ministry says transmission of the virus remains possible through contact with bird droppings, feathers, uncooked poultry, and infected animals. Bird flu has been reported in over 100 countries across the world, including several in the Caribbean region. The full resumption of schools across the island is expected in early January. That's according to the Minister of Finance, Favour Williams, as she answered questions at Tuesday's meeting of Parliament's Standing Finance Committee.
I'm reliably told January 6, 2026 for all schools.
For January 6, 2026 for all schools?
Yes, what makes you answer? That's the plan right now.
So the plan, is there a basis, is there a reason for the closure of the school? Is it damage from the hurricane, or is it that they're being serving as shelter? What's the reason for the closure of these schools?
59 of our schools are serving as shelters.
59 of them are currently.
As you know, as the government finds new spaces for those persons, then those schools will cease to exist as shelters.
Parliament's Standing Finance Committee convened to interrogate the third supplementary estimates for the country's budget. The estimates represent the additional allocations made to respond to the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Approximately 160 schools remain closed following the hurricane. A significant portion are still being restored following extensive damage. Minister Williams says in areas where a full resumption will not be possible, different modalities will be used to ensure children remain engaged in formal education.
Recall that the assessment would tell the Ministry of Education which schools are severely damaged and needed to be repaired before children go back, which schools have damage but children could go back while the damage is being fixed, and which schools, what are the other schools. So they prioritize the schools, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and there'll be a number of different modalities happening at the school. So whether it be rotation, blended, remote, they will deploy all those different modalities.
Favour Williams, the Minister of Finance and the Public Service. The National Water Commission says 83% of customers have had their service restored since the passage of Hurricane Melissa. According to NWC, the figure translates to over 458,000 customers. But Content Creation and Development Manager at NWC, Andrew Cannon, says restoration efforts are being hampered by inconsistent power supply to its network. He says the NWC is in constant dialogue with the Jamaica Public Service Company on the matter. Another challenge cited is broken mains in the network caused by the Category 5 hurricane. Cannon says NWC will begin the trucking of water to impacted communities. He says the company has begun distribution of 5-gallon water kegs to residents in the communities in the interim. Chairman of the National Prayer Vigil Committee, Reverend Errol Rattray, says church groups have pooled funds to support church ministers and tourism workers affected by the passage of Hurricane Melissa. He was speaking at the press conference for the 33rd National Prayer Vigil in St. Andrew on Tuesday.
In terms of what the church is doing, churches have come together and some ministers who would not be paid because the church is gone and the money, the offerings and the tithe is not going to come in because those people are affected. Churches have now come together and have decided they're going to pay the pastor. Not only that, the church right now, for the people in the tourist industry who have lost their job, and as long as they can identify, yes, they were working, they're not working on getting money, there is a group that have reached out to say, we will pay them for 6 months and they'll recover. The church is doing so much.
According to Reverend Rattray, hundreds of churches were severely impacted. He says the church has stepped up to offer thousands of relief packages to residents in affected areas. He says church groups have also moved to adopt other churches and families severely impacted by the passage of Hurricane Melissa.
There are churches that are adopting churches. Those that were not damaged are adopting churches that have been damaged. So they are now going to fix up church. Not only that, the Christians are adopting families. Not only now the church is adopting, but churches overseas that are aligned to churches here are sending things, money, sending material,
Reverend Errol Rattray, chairman of the National Prayer Vigil Committee. The 33rd staging of the National Prayer Vigil is set for December 13 to December 14. This year's staging will feature a 2-day prayer of repentance across the island. Meanwhile, a member of the committee, Pastor Dr. Patricia Holness, says the church has been working alongside the government to remove the tedium from the process of donation.
We have been cooperating with the government of Jamaica, so our partners overseas are able to send packages and containers through ODPEM without the long red tape of having to go to the wharfs, and they just instruct us and we work with them.
Dr. Patricia Holness, a member of the National Prayer Vigil Committee. President of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, BITU, Senator Cavan Gale, or President General of the BITU, Senator Cavan Gale, is calling for a renewed national focus on productivity as a key feature of wage negotiations.
I think we would have, as trade unions, suggested and promoted productivity bargaining. I would have come out publicly and said, my union is not afraid of having performance-based pay within the public sector, where you put in the right ingredients for that kind of bargaining, where you improve the skill development, you have the investment in terms of technological integration, and you set up better work organization that includes flexible operations, remote work, the improved infrastructure, and having a culture shift promoting punctuality and efficiency and accountability.
His call comes amid concerns about the state of the country's industrial relations landscape in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Thousands of tourism workers remain off the job as hotels across the island continue to grapple with the fallout from the hurricane. Wage negotiations are currently underway between unions and the management in the industry. Speaking on Nationwide at 5 on Tuesday, Senator Gale said modern wage talks must take into account existing realities and challenges.
We're going to have to infuse in those upcoming negotiations now cost of living plus productivity formulas. We may have to consider putting in inflation protection in these upcoming negotiations. And we may want to look at longer negotiations to both give businesses some level of certainty and to create some sort of stability for the workers. But it has to be a parallel effect, because on the one hand, we have to have a joint recovery and resilience, but we also have to promote productivity. And equally, we have to put in these protective measures in the negotiations towards attaining sustainability as part of the resilience and the recovery plan.
Senator Cavan Gale, President General of the BITU. Meanwhile, President of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, JCTU, St. Patrice Ennis, says while productivity is important, work must be done to remove the impediments to greater levels of efficiency in the workplace.
When we talk about it, what people tend to focus on is the input of the worker, and that is only one aspect of productivity. We have to talk about transportation, we have to talk about the entire country, and what makes a productivity is not just a worker working on the job, how he gets there. That is going to impact their jobs. We have to talk about all of that. We look at the transportation system, we see the gridlock. That must impact us too. So we have to talk about all of that and how that impacts productivity, and what are we going to do about all of those things.
St. Patrice Ennis, President of the JCTU. A waiver of outstanding loans and the payment of holiday bonuses are part of the agreed separation package for staff at Bahia Resorts as the St. Anne Hotel closes for renovation. This follows a meeting with the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union and the management of the hotel on Tuesday. Government Senator Cavan Gale is President General of the BITU.
We would have signed off the agreement with the management of the hotel. It would have included the statutory entitlements as it relates to redundancy. We would have made requests for certain provisions to be made to be included in what we consider the enhanced package, the educational assistance for children that has been agreed on. The workers will continue to benefit from that up to the 31st of March 2026. The hotel also agreed on a request that we made to waive all balances of principal and any outstanding loan to staff. They would have supported our request for the Christmas package to be included as part of the separation package.
The hotel had originally planned to close the Bahia Principe Grand Jamaica and Bahia Principe Luxury for a $15 billion renovation exercise. But then Hurricane Melissa hit the country, causing extensive damage to both properties. The hotel management has assessed the damage caused by the hurricane at $850 million. These developments have resulted in the indefinite closure of both resorts and will now see 2,000 staff members lose their jobs. Senator Gale says workers will also be entitled to gratuity.
We would have made another request as part of the enhanced package payment that the hotel make each employee a payment in the sum equivalent to the gratuity to be included in the calculations. And the hotel would have agreed on including a portion of that as part of the gratuity calculations. We hope that in the final analysis, when the hotel reopens, said employees, if they so desire, will be hired going forward.
Senator Cavan Gale, President General of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. Overseas news now. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado will miss the ceremony to award her the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, and that ceremony is now underway in the Norwegian city. The Norwegian Nobel Institute told public broadcaster NRK the Venezuelan opposition leader was not in the Norwegian capital on the day of the ceremony. It says her daughter would accept the prize on her behalf. Machado last appeared in public 11 months ago. She has been living in hiding since being briefly detained after joining supporters in a protest in Caracas, Venezuela's capital. The 58-year-old's win for her struggle to achieve a democratic transition in her South American nation was announced on October 10. Prominent Latin American figures set to attend the ceremony, in attendance at the ceremony, in a signal of solidarity with Machado, include the Argentine President Javier Milei, Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa, Panama's President Jose Raul Molino, and the Paraguayan President Santiago Peña. That's the news.